or new wave. That's right.
Talk to me.
That's it. I should wear sunglasses instead of this.
No doubt.
All right, here we are. Safety and the Sportswriter coming to you live. Knoxville Nate and Big Joe, 6 o'clock on the 29th of June. We're heading into July already. Camps will be starting up. We got a lot going on here. Sports all over the place. I mean, football's about to get back to us again. Thank God. I miss it so much. Nate, we're going to talk about free agents tonight. I also have a list, if I can find it again, of an article I read today of the 10 teams that they predict will not make the playoffs in the NFL.
Wow.
And most of them you can go with. And, we'll just see what we feel later on. One thing today, I was flashing around on the internet, of course, and, I feel sorry for the guy in a way, but, he tried to bring politics into sport, and it kind of backfired on him. Will Colin Kaepernick just go away? He's 35 years old now. There's no... If he wants to play, why doesn't he try Canada at this point? I mean, because I don't see a team that needs him right now. I don't know about you.
I mean, there wasn't a team that needed him 5 years ago, so there's certainly no team that needs him right now. I don't know who's still pushing that agenda. I mean, this guy settled a lawsuit with the NFL. He got a bunch of money. He then said that he still wanted to play and that they were colluding against him, after that. And then they set him up with a tryout, and then he didn't even show up. So, or he moved the tryout at the last minute to a different location. It's ridiculous. This guy, played actually pretty well. The first 2 years he was in the league when people didn't have tape on him. They weren't sure what he could do and what he couldn't do. I give him credit for that. It was impressive. He got his team, playing in the Super Bowl for the 49ers. And then NFL teams got tape on him and figured out what he couldn't do. And he wasn't able to really get much better. And instead of work hard, he decided to use his political stance to get on a soapbox. And, I just didn't really understand that, man. I mean, sports to me is the place I go to get away from politics. Sports to me is the place I go to get away from all things that are kind of controversial. I mean, I get it. These guys have a platform. If they want to use their platform to push things, as we talked about with LeBron the other day, so be it. Go for it. But, when you're not playing well and you're not good, and then you start pushing an agenda, that doesn't go well. I mean, LeBron can say whatever he wants because he's one of the greatest players of all time. Colin Kaepernick was struggling to get on the field at the point that he started pushing his agenda, and we saw how that worked for him.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think, first of all, as an American citizen, everybody has a right to say whatever they want. I don't care about that. But, I mean, you also, if I remember, I haven't looked at his stats in a long time because I had no reason to. Because I remember at the time looking at it, and the team's record was going down and his performance was going down. Maybe it had to do with a Harbaugh getting ready to leave or leaving, and the team didn't have the leadership needed. I mean, maybe he was the kind of guy. There's very few quarterback coach combinations that work with anybody else. I've seen it throughout the time of watching football. It seems like every great coach has their one quarterback that works with them. Everybody, and then they can't find that second guy. Bill Parcells is always looking for his next Phil Simms. I mean, I can go down the list up and down. Yeah, he may have had a lot of good other quarterbacks who were talented, but not the one that could fulfill his vision. So we won't go into that. But I mean, my whole thing is the quarterback position every year coming out of college. We're talking about 3, 4, sometimes 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks who have a chance to go and become stars or solid college quarterbacks. And the thing is, he's 35. He's 35 years old. So I don't even know why the press is writing an article about him.
That was my point. Why are we talking about him? Why are they putting that out there? I want to know who's still pushing that agenda. I don't get it.
Yeah, it just makes no sense to me. But so that's one free agent I don't think we're really going to have to worry about. If he's brought in at all to any place, it would only be for some kind of a press hype day. I don't, sorry, I don't think he's coming back anytime soon, or at all. So let's talk about the guys that are going to be on the field or should be on the field this year. And you've got the list of the free agents you want to talk about. So I'm going to let you turn it over to you and let's start it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to do this is probably by best available guys, and that's kind of depends on, I guess, what position that you're what position you're needing, depending on who the best available guy is. But I'm just talking about guys that are that teams want. Okay. Right. And, I think the number one guy out there right now, to me, has to be either DeAndre Hopkins or Dalvin Cook out of the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, those two guys, to me, can come in, help a team right away. DeAndre Hopkins is 31 years old. He's missed some games recently, but really missed the games he's missed mainly were due to suspensions, not so much to injury. In fact, he's been pretty healthy the last 2 years. So I would think he could come in and help a team right away. The question I have is, which team does he go to and how much does he have left? What is the market for this guy? How many years do you want to sign him for? I mean, 31 years old, but, been in the NFL for quite some time. He's taken a lot of hits. Joe, what is the market for this guy in your opinion? And what do you pay him? I mean, he had a contract going on with the Arizona Cardinals, and they didn't want to pay him what he was due, which was 22. He was about a $22 million cap hit. Tyreek Hill's getting $30 million, but DeAndre Hopkins isn't Tyreek Hill. What's this guy worth? What's he going to get paid?
Well, I mean, first of all, I got to know what's in his head. If it's just about the money, then there's a number of places you can go. If it's about getting a ring, I would hope at this stage in his career, money isn't what he's playing for. I would hope it's trying to, because I mean, he's had enough seasons to put up kind of borderline, if not full Canton stats. He should have all the money he needs. So, I mean, runs right out there to you is, some kind of a contract with the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe a 2-year contract with a 3rd-year option, and a lot of incentives. Because, like you said, he's 31, and I would love to get in these guys' heads because George Young, the GM of the Giants, always they always say it's not about the money, but it's always about the money. So, what is in his head? I would think that would be the best spot for him. I know a lot of people are talking about New England, and New England needs him, but is he willing to go to what looks to be one of the most competitive divisions in football and play for right now was a thought to be the 3rd or 4th best team in that division? I mean, that you might as well stay with Arizona for that.
Well, I think that the Patriots instantly get better if they add DeAndre Hopkins. They don't have anybody on the outside that scares me. I know they keep bringing guys in. I know they keep trying to get a top flight wide receiver, but they still don't have one. And to me, signing Devontae Parker again was kind of confusing. I mean, I've never really liked that guy as a player, and giving him an extension of over $30 million to me was ludicrous, especially when you're in the mix for signing DeAndre Hopkins. My biggest question with the Patriots is Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien was the guy that shipped DeAndre Hopkins out of town, wasn't he, when he was at the Texans?
Well, he was the coach.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So he was the GM at a time as well. After they fired the GM, Bill O'Brien became the de facto general manager and the head coach, and was kind of pulling all the strings. And that's what some of the players were unhappy about. But that to me is my biggest question mark with the Patriots. They certainly could use him. He could instantly make them better. They could find a way to get him the money that he wants. If I was the Patriots, I would have certainly probably not let him leave town. But it seems like he visited them. He visited the Titans. It seems like those are the two teams that probably need him the most. But once again, does he want the money or does he want to win now? Because that's going to really, be what it comes down to.
Well, I mean, yeah, they just got out of, they're trying to get out of cap hell. What about the Rams?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to see where they're at this point. They have about $13 million in cap space. So, they could do a deal. They could definitely do a deal. They could give him, $9 million in salary, maybe $8 million, and then give him a signing bonus of, $12 million bucks or whatever it takes to get him on board. But do the Rams really think that they're DeAndre Hopkins away from, going after another run in the playoffs? I mean, I don't think they are. Based on what we saw last year, it seems like they're more than one player from being back to uber competitive.
Yeah, the only thing is that I see with that division, and the more I see it is, San Francisco, who is going to be their quarterback? Because if Purdy's not ready, they're really banking on Purdy being ready. I hear Trey Lance, they're ready to throw up their hands, but there's no market for him in things I've read. And of course, we all know Sam Darnold's no answer. So you got that situation there. And then, up in the Pacific Northwest, yeah, for 1 year he was a good quarterback, but can he do it twice in a row? We know Arizona's a mess. So it's not beyond the realm to think that with McVay coaching, the Rams could not be the super team they were a couple of years ago, but be a contender in that division, I think. And if you look at it and they get Hopkins and Kupp's back healthy and everything else, that's a pretty good duo right there.
No, it is. But, where's Matt Stafford at? Is he back to his old self? Is he healthy? Is he going to be able to play 17 games? I don't think I don't know. I mean, I was kind of befuddled last year with what was going on because he wasn't ready to go all of camp. He couldn't even throw the football in preseason. And then, he kind of came in, he didn't look right. Then he got hurt and was done for the year. So, I'm interested to see where he's at and whether or not he's able to play and be back to what he was the year they won the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, they're not that far removed from winning the title, but they have shed some of their older players. They haven't had a first-round draft pick in, 7 years? Mm-hmm. So it's not like they're abundantly talented and deep is my biggest thing. Depth is my biggest concern with the Rams. We saw last year a couple guys went down and bam, that season was over. And, I still see that as their biggest problem. But, DeAndre Hopkins to me is a guy that's going to be on a roster. I think he's still trying to figure out what he wants. Does he want the money? What is he being offered? My biggest thing is I would say he's not worth the $22 million that he was owed in Arizona. But then I saw, Odell Beckham Jr., get $18 million from the Ravens. And I would much rather have DeAndre Hopkins than Odell Beckham. In fact, I think if the Ravens had to do it over again, they probably would have waited and got DeAndre Hopkins instead of Odell.
Well, and the other thing you got to look at is quarterbacks. If you're a wide receiver, you don't want to hitch your wagon to a team that doesn't have a quarterback. And I mean, Joe Burrow doesn't need him. Jacksonville would be intriguing, but it's Jacksonville. I mean, go down there with Trevor Lawrence. Miami doesn't need him. Buffalo could use him, depending on what goes on with Diggs. But the Jets seem to be set at wide receiver, and D. Hopkins was never, one of Aaron's friends, so I don't think Aaron will be going to bat for him too much. I mean, look around the league. I mean, for him, the place to make sense really right now are Kansas City. I'd say, like you said, you made a good case for New England, and I don't see how the Tennessee works into it. I think Mike Vrabel needs him. Mike Vrabel needs a season to keep his job, but Tannehill, I don't see how it enhances him.
It may not enhance him, but Tennessee's going to overpay for him because they don't have another wide receiver. They let A.J. Brown go, and they have nobody else. I mean, think about it. Last year, Robert Woods led the Tennessee Titans in receiving. He had about 500 receiving yards, and they trade A.J. Brown away. I mean, this is where the discourse came in with the Tennessee Titans. They trade away A.J. Brown, get rid of him, and then you're like, what are we doing here? Because if you look at the top 3 wide receivers for the Tennessee Titans from last year, add it all up, you get about 1,300 yards. A.J. Brown had almost 1,500.
Right. No,
so one guy had more yards than their top 3. They need somebody right now. And if they don't get a wide receiver, a top echelon wide receiver, you can pretty much write the season off because they're already struggling in a number of positions, and wide receiver is probably the most glaring.
Exactly. But that's my whole point is, does the wide receiver get them back up on top of that division? I think right now they're behind Jacksonville, at least on the performance of last year, and the way you look at this roster going into this year. If D-Hop puts them above the Jacksonville, I'm all for it.
He makes them competitive with them. I mean, the Colts don't scare me. They're kind of a mess in my opinion.
They're not.
The Texans don't scare me, and the Jaguars, they're good, but are they leaps and bounds above Tennessee? I mean, they may have taken a step above them, but think about it. They still were playing for the division on the last game of the season after the Titans had lost 6 in a row. So they certainly aren't way ahead of them. And DeAndre Hopkins makes the Titans competitive. You would think. With Coach Vrabel and how much everybody loves him, he's worth a couple wins a year just by himself, you would think, if he can get somebody that can catch the damn football. So we'll see what happens there. But I like him going to the Titans or potentially the Chiefs or the Patriots is kind of what I'm thinking about. But the most interesting to me right now is our boy Dalvin Cook out of Minnesota. Obviously was released. I still have no idea why the Vikings released him. They won 14 games last year. Aaron Rodgers is gone. The Bears are still at least 1 to 2 years away minimum. The Lions are a good team, but I think are a tiny bit overhyped. The Vikings have $19 million in cap space. Why they traded or why they released their best player on offense, arguably, or the most important player on offense, arguably, I don't know. I'm confused by why they released Dalvin Cook in the first place.
I think it's just a devaluing of the position. And I think, the worst thing, I think it's part of analytics trickling into sports. I think at his age, the amount of carries he has, some mathematician upstairs went to the head coach, went to the GM, went to the president of the team and said, okay, we can expect this kind of a decline in performance because it happened to Zeke. It happened to this guy. It happened to that guy. But Dalvin Cook can be the outliner or the outlier. He could be the Frank Gore, the guy who ends up playing another 10 years at a high level. It's just these teams aren't willing to take the chance on the running backs anymore. That's just it. They're not going to take the
but
chance.
They've already got him, and they didn't have to give him an extension or anything like that.
But I don't know. I just think they just feel to move on. I don't know.
This is the year that the Vikings have been waiting for. Aaron Rodgers gone, door wide open to win the division. They won the division last year, so and now the Packers are worse. So why in the hell do you release your most explosive player on offense? It makes no sense to me.
Like I said, the only thing I can equate it to is some kind of a projection analytically that he's going to, unless there's something we don't know about, unless the coach doesn't like him, unless there's something going on behind the scenes or in the locker room that we don't know about. The only thing I can think, because sports is heading in this direction, is all about projections. They're projecting him to have some kind of a fall off this year. That's the only reason. Other than that, like you said, he's under contract. There's nothing going on. Why would you cut him? Except if you know there's something really wrong with him, and we'll see.
Okay, so let's say that you think he's going to drop in production. There's going to be a drop in production this year from him. I don't know where you get that from because he looked pretty damn good last year.
It's just my speculation.
He played in all 17 games. He had 264 carries for over 1,100 yards. He averaged 4.5 a carry. He had 8 touchdowns, almost 70 yards a game. So whatever, you release him. Who the hell are the Vikings going to have carry the ball now? Tell me that.
That's just it. I'm an old-fashioned guy. When I look at sport, I think that they've totally ignored the running back position. When you look at what Pacheco meant to the Kansas City Chiefs last year, if you think about what a running back can do, but the speculation and all the things that people talk about today is you don't need to run the big running back. You can get by with 2 or 3 of them. You don't need to have one big running back. In fact, you're better off having depth. You're better off not having the bell cow anymore. I think it's ridiculous because I think at some point you do need a running game to control the clock, to protect the lead. But the way they look at it now, the authorities, the experts, and I hate to say it, like I said, I believe it's some kind of an analytical decision because I can't see any other reason to do it other than you think he's going to have a drop-off.
Well, even if, let's say he does have a drop-off, and so you get rid of him, well, then you have to replace him. Mm-hmm. They don't have anybody to replace him. I mean, Alexander Mattison is a good change of pace from Dalvin Cook, but let's be honest, last year the guy had 74 carries for 283 yards. He averaged 3.8 a pop. He had 5 touchdowns, which is good, but that's it. That's what you got out of him. He only had I think 18 targets for 91 yards out of the backfield. That's not good. Dalvin Cook had 300 yards receiving as well. So you're killing your leading. You're getting rid of your leading receiver out of the backfield. You're getting rid of your leading rusher, and you're not replacing him. And I don't like their depth. What if so let's say Alexander Mattison does blow up and has a tremendous season. What if he gets hurt in week 12? Then you're going to hand the reins over to Ty Chandler, second-year guy out of North Carolina who's shown nothing in this league, or Dwayne McBride or Kene Nwagu. Those guys don't push the needle for me. So, the best place I could see Dalvin Cook going would be back to Minnesota because they're the team that needs him the most, team that's ready to win their division and compete for the playoffs. It's not going to happen, obviously. They just released him. And he's not going to go back there for a lower number, but that's the team that needs him the most. So why they released him, I have no idea. But if I was a team right now who, was one player away, Dalvin Cook would be the guy I'd be calling because this dude is home run ability. He can get you short yardage. Like I said, he can catch it out of the backfield. He's pretty decent pass protector. He's not the greatest, but he can do it. This is a guy I would want on my football team, and he's been uber productive in his career. The question is, who's going to pull the trigger? The Dolphins have already made an offer to him. They obviously, have a pretty decent backfield already, but they want to improve it, which I give them credit for. But other than the Dolphins who've already offered him the contract, I'm not sure who's going to pony up the money for him to get him on the roster. You tell me.
Dalvin Cook?
Yeah.
Let me just think. I mean, the Bears come to mind right away. There's plenty of teams that could use them. I mean, it's just a question of what team's going to put out the money for him. I mean, I don't know. And like I said, I mean, I'm not trying to be, how can I say adversarial here, but I mean, there's got to be something more to the story as to why they released him. And either I don't know, analytics. What I don't know. I really don't. I can name a bunch of teams that could use him. I mean, he fits in anywhere.
Yeah, well, the Vikings. Dalvin Cook wasn't the only player the Vikings released. I mean, they got rid of a number of players. This season they got rid of their wide receiver, that they've had for a number of years and who's been a stalwart on their team, and Adam Thielen. They traded Zadarius Smith to the Browns, who was a double digit sack guy last year for them, and one of their top pass rushers. They also got rid of Patrick Peterson, who honestly has played pretty well. They've released Eric Kendricks, who's been a Pro Bowl linebacker for them. This is a team that was supposedly very close to winning the Super Bowl and competing for it at least, and winning 14 games. And they got rid of everybody who's worth a shit on their roster. So I have no idea what they're doing.
No, that's the whole thing. And we're not going to know what they're doing right now. I mean, as far as running, what about Buffalo for him? What about
I like Buffalo's running back room right now. They've got last year I did not like it. This year I do. They got James Cook. They've got Naheem Hines. They've got the kid out of New England from last year, who they just recently signed, the kid out, Damian Harris, out of Alabama. So I like what they have at running back right now. They also signed Latavius Murray. So the Bills are 4 deep at running back, and I don't see them bringing in Dalvin Cook at this point, although I'm sure he'd love to play with his brother. I don't see them. They have no need really for him at this point.
What about Cowboys?
Cowboys was the team I was going to say. Tony Pollard is there. He's playing under the franchise tag. He's also got a broken leg, which he did towards the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
They released Zeke, and even if, let's say, Tony Pollard is 100% healthy game 1. Well, say he gets hurt in game 5, then what do you do? Malik Davis, Ronald Jones, and Deuce Vaughn behind him. Those aren't guys that you can know are going to step up and replace that production. There's no one there. So the Cowboys to me would probably be the best spot in terms of fit and in terms of a team that is ready to win now. I think if Dalvin Cook really wants to win a ring, like he keeps telling everybody that will listen to him, I think the Cowboys would probably be the best spot for him. Because that's a powerful backfield, in my opinion. Tony Pollard and Dalvin Cook. You could use those two guys simultaneously. Have one of them play, one of them rest. You can get through the season with those two dudes, especially if you got Ronald Jones and Deuce Vaughn behind them.
Well, and the other thing is like even with them betting on Tony Pollard, we've only seen him really do well when he had Zeke as the other back. We've never seen him be the primary guy. So they're betting. They really do need to get another guy in there because, Tony Pollard as the change of pace back was explosive because he was such a different runner than Zeke. Yep. If he has to sit there and be the guy who gets the tough yards in between the tackles, along with being the home run hitter, I don't know how he'll do in that role. Very few can do both.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. But that's why I like that spot for him. And, I think I like how he didn't sign right away with the Dolphins. I'm not so sure that's the best place for him. I'm sure they probably didn't give him the amount of money that he's looking for. But Miami's got a chance to win some games, but that's not where I think, he would get the most chances to prove himself and hit the incentive markers that he may have to hit to get all the money that's coming to him. So we'll see where he ends up going. But to me, that's the guy that I would go out and grab if I was one dude away and trying to keep up with some of these other teams in my division or in the AFC or the NFC. Dalvin Cook to me is still got some miles left in the tank.
Yeah, and if the Cowboys hope to compete with the Eagles, they got to get as much talent as they can because the Eagles just reloaded to the nth degree.
Yes, so. I agree. And sticking on that running back position, I want to talk about them right now because there is still some talent right now in the running backs, and Dalvin Cook is obviously, in my opinion, the best. But let's say you don't have enough money to get Dalvin Cook. Well, you still can go out and get Kareem Hunt. You can get Leonard Fournette. You can get J.D. McKissick. I like those two guys that I mentioned first the most. I mean, Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette are about the same age. I think Lenny is a year older, but Kareem Hunt, was out of football for a year there after the kicking incident in the Cleveland hotel. So he's got a lot less mileage on his legs.
Oh yeah, especially backing up Chubb for the last 3 years,
and that too. And then when he did come back, he was Chubb's backup essentially. And so this guy, to me, he's got a lot of football left. He is a guy that still, in my opinion, shows some explosion. He may not be as explosive as he was when he was, trucking people for the Chiefs when he first came into the league. But this is a guy who still can help your football team. So if I had the choice, didn't have the money for Cook, my next choice would be Kareem Hunt, and then after that, I think Leonard Fournette, still has a little bit of gas left in the tank. Just to me, I worry about him. He didn't show up in shape last year. What makes you think he's going to show up in shape this year when he's not even on a team?
Yeah, I totally agree with that assessment of Fournette. And did you see the car accident he had supposedly the other day?
Yeah, where the vehicle caught on fire and burned to a crisp.
Yeah.
I did see that.
I mean, I definitely think that the hunger is in Hunt. I think, he was on his way to being a household name. And then he had he did something stupid and got suspended. And he's been a good citizen backing up Chubb. But I think he wants the opportunity to show what he really can do. So I think the hunger is within Kareem Hunt to really explode on the NFL this year, whoever picks him up. And there's another guy, I mean, he could fill a number of different positions. I mean, that could let's go around. Let's take a look at where he could end up. I could see him and another guy go to Chicago. What do you feel about Detroit up there?
Detroit obviously, has Jahmyr Gibbs that they just drafted. They have David Montgomery, who they signed as a free agent, gave him a big contract. In fact, David Montgomery and the kid from Philadelphia, Miles Sanders, were the two running backs, the only two really that got paid. So I'm not sure that Detroit really wants to dump a ton of money into another running back when they have those two guys. But let's say David Montgomery goes down in training camp, or Jahmyr Gibbs goes down. I could certainly see the Lions picking him up. I think if Kareem is smart, or Kareem's agent is smart, if anybody that's making decisions for him is smart, I would wait. And I wouldn't sign with anybody right now. I would take my time. I would, wait and see kind of approach. And, there's going to be an injury at the running back position. I mean, somebody's going to blow their Achilles out. Somebody's going to blow their knee out, even when they're running around in shorts. And when that happens, his market is going to go way up, and his price tag is going to go up. So I think that it would be smart for him to wait. Right now, I think the Lions are probably okay at running back. I think, I like what they've got in those two guys, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. What they have behind that, I'm not really that impressed with, in Craig Reynolds and Jamar Jefferson. So I think he's probably somebody they've got on their radar just in case of an injury, but they're probably okay there. The Packers are still in pretty good shape with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. So I don't see him really making a move up there. The team that, to me, I think could potentially use Kareem Hunt is the Colts. They've got Jonathan Taylor, who struggled a little bit last year. And behind him, I don't like what they have. They've got Zach Moss, who's, let's be honest, has been underperforming ever since he came into the league. And Deion Jackson and Evan Hall don't really do much for me. So if I was the Colts, I'd be looking hard at him. And that'd be a guy that I'd want to bring in because they're going to need as much running game help as they can, considering they don't have anybody that can throw it.
Yeah, but does Hunt want to? Wouldn't Hunt want to? Isn't that kind of like a lateral move to be potentially the backup to Taylor? I mean, he goes from Chubb to Taylor. I mean, to backing up. I mean, how about Tampa Bay? How about New Orleans?
New Orleans is a good spot. They have Alvin Kamara, who may or may not, be suspended this season. But behind him, they've got some pretty good pieces. They've got Jamal Williams, who set the record for touchdowns last year in Detroit, and then basically was an afterthought for the Lions, and the Saints swooped him up. They also drafted Kendre Miller, who was one of the best running backs in all of college football last year out of TCU. And then they have a pretty decent guy who's shown some productivity in Dwayne Washington as their fourth stringer. So I'm not sure that the Saints are going to, do anything right now at that position unless there's a, long-term suspension handed down for Kamara or an injury. I don't know. What was the other team? You said Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay could definitely use him because they got rid of Leonard Fournette. They seem to really like Rashad White. They like him more than I do. But they also signed Chase Edmonds away from Miami, where he was at last year. And then they have as their third stringer, Keyshawn Vaughn, who's been on the team for the last 3 or 4 years. Hasn't been extremely productive. But I do think I think they're okay with what they've got in those three guys.
How about Denver?
Denver is a team that seems to be pretty set at the running back position, depending on the health of Javonte Williams. If he is back, ready to go, I think they're going to be okay there because they've got him. They've got the kid from Cincinnati, Samaje Perine, who has proven to be a really good secondary running back. And then they also signed free agent out of New Orleans, Tony Jones Jr., who was on your Fighting Irish a couple of years ago. So, Denver, I could see him going there if maybe Javante's not fully healed and fully ready to go. But they seem to think he's, in pretty good shape and maybe ready to roll when the season begins.
How about staying in the state of Ohio, Cincinnati?
Cincinnati needs to add a running back, in my opinion. Joe Mixon is facing a potential suspension, not to mention he's logged a lot of yards. This is a guy who I would vote, who I would potentially be worried about, showing a potential drop-off. That to me is a guy that, has been very productive throughout his career, but he's logged a lot of yards. Now, they did draft Chase Brown later on in the draft, which I thought was a huge value pick. But behind them, they have Travion Williams, who I'm not in love with, and Chris Evans, who's more of a, third down kind of guy. I think that if the Bengals were smart, they would sign Kareem Hunt right now.
But the problem with the Bengals are they're notoriously cheap.
Exactly. But I don't think the price tag for him is too high. I think that you could get him relatively inexpensively, if you act now. If you wait till Joe Mixon's suspended or you wait till Joe Mixon gets hurt in training camp, well, then the price goes up. So I think that if the Bengals were smart, they would get him on the roster right now. That's the thing with the Bengals. They're still pretty good, in my opinion, as far as their frontline guys go. My problem is depth on the Bengals. What if Joe Burrow gets hurt? What the hell do the Bengals do? I mean, I know that. I mean, you say that like every team, if Patrick Mahomes goes down, what do the Chiefs do? But Patrick Mahomes hasn't really gotten injured. Joe Burrow has, and they've got Trevor Siemian and Jake Browning behind him. And let me tell you what that spells. That spells a lot of losses because both those guys suck.
Oh, Jake Browning's a never was. Trevor Siemian, we've seen the worst of him because there is no best.
There is no best, and I don't want to see the rest of him because the best was never there, and the rest is just scary to even think about. I can't believe that guy's still in the league because he's been losing games as a backup for a long time.
Yeah, that's people bet on him. He must be pretty good in the film room. He's one of these guys. He's pretty good. The starting quarterbacks don't look at him as a threat, so they're golfing buddies, and he probably does good things with the team, and they just think they just praying and hoping that they don't have to depend on him for more than kneeling at the end of the game.
No doubt. So let's. I'd like to talk a little bit about the other guys that are left that kind of stand out to me, and we'll go position by position here. Wide receivers to me is a really thin position right now. If you're looking for a free agent that's still available, to me, the only guy that's really worth a shit that I'm thinking of is Jarvis Landry. I know he's 30 years old. I know last year wasn't that great for him. But of all the guys that are available, Kenny Golladay, Julio Jones, Byron Pringle, N'Keal Harry, Sammy Watkins, Andre Roberts, Rashad Higgins, on and on and on. The only one to me that I would potentially sign out of that entire group is Jarvis Landry. What do you think?
Well, I think he's definitely number one. Sammy Watkins, isn't he on AARP? I mean, the guy's been around forever.
Yeah.
The thing about wide receivers, none of them are going to command a big salary anyways. Jarvis Landry is good because he can play inside, outside. He could be your slot guy. He can do at this stage. He can do a lot of different things for you and bring a lot to the table. And he's the one Golladay. I think Galladay's damaged goods. The rest of the guys, like you said, they don't float my boat. But yeah, Jarvis Landry. If for someone looking for a number 3 and number 4 guy, he'd be really cool.
Yeah, I like him. He's probably the only guy on the list that I can see because that list is looking real thin right now. So is the offensive line list. Chase Roulier is available. He's only 29 years old. That's a guy, if you're looking for a center, I could see bringing in. Rodney Hudson's been productive over his career at center. He's 33, so I don't know how much longer he's going to be hanging around, but that's a guy you can look at. Trey Turner as a guard if you need one, I could see bringing in. But let's be honest, the offensive line pool is slim at best. So you better have some guys already on your roster, or you better be looking to trade because the offensive line free agent pool sucks. And you know what? The tight end group isn't much better. We're talking about 33-year-old Kyle Rudolph, who hasn't done anything in the past few years.
No,
Richard Rodgers, who's gotten worse, it seems like, the last 3 or 4 years instead of better. Cameron Brate is a guy that I might take a flyer on just because there's no one else. He's been a pretty productive guy at times for Tampa Bay. That's really the only guy that I could see investing in. Jeff Swam is a dude who played at Tennessee. He's 29 years old. He may have a little bit of something to give you, but really tight end is a position. Stuff. Yeah, this is all depth stuff at this position. So that's all you're looking at. Now,
blockers,
and maybe some guys that catch, 20, 30 balls max. Now, pass rushers, crazy to think about, but there's some pass rushers still available. Robert Quinn, I know he's 33, but, he's 2 years from 19 sacks in Chicago. I think he's a guy that if you have a situational pass rush need, he can come in and help you out. Yannick Ngakoue seems like he's 40 years old, but he's only 28.
My God.
He's only 28 years old, and he hasn't logged too many miles the last few years. Another guy who's still out there is Melvin Ingram and Jadeveon Clowney, two guys who, honestly, Melvin Ingram's been more productive than Clowney, but Clowney's only 30. So,
and the thing about Clowney is, with your fan base, everybody's been hearing about this guy for years, and everybody remembers that great tackle in the bowl game against Michigan and everything else. And he's ultimately talented and everything, but I think that he would have to come in and finally show something. He'd have to hit a home run, because I think every fan base looks at him. Yeah, when's Clowney going to be the Jadeveon Clowney we thought he was going to be?
Yeah, he's never been that guy.
And I mean, but then again, defensive line, it's never bad to have depth. And if they got some tread left on their tires, you want to be able to rotate these guys in. The best teams have a rotation of 6 or 8 defensive linemen. And, even if they have a couple of studs, the rest of the guys are interchangeable. So for the right price, sure.
Yeah, he's going to get another shot. He was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. he will get another shot. It's just at what price point does he get another shot? The guy, to me, that really stands out that's still available, and I know he's 34 years old. He'll probably not 100% sure when his birthday is, but he'll probably be 35 by the time the season rolls around, which sounds ancient for a pass rusher. But Justin Houston was extremely productive last year in Baltimore. He was available for 14 games. He started all 14 of them. He had 9.5 sacks, 21 tackles, forced a fumble. He had an interception. This guy, I don't think he wants to go to camp, so he's not in any hurry to be signed right now. But somebody's going to look at what they've got, and they're going to decide, Justin Houston's better. And he's going to maybe I can honestly see the Ravens bringing him back. I know they're trying out the younger kids right now. They're going to let the young guys, bust it out in camp. But I could easily see the Baltimore Ravens bringing back 35, 34-year-old Justin Houston after his 9.5 sack performance last year.
It's funny you bring that up about camp with defensive linemen, because it just brings me back to Strahan's last year, and he proved if you are a veteran defensive lineman in the NFL, you don't need to go to camp. You don't need to have those young guys going at your knees, trying to get you out of games and stuff. You already know what you got to do. You know what your job's going to be. It's just learning terminology, basically. If you go to a different team, you know what your job is. Go get the quarterback and get the guy with the ball and put him on the ground. So They're the guys that least need to be in camp.
No, they at this point, they know how to rush the passer. So, Justin Houston's not going to get anywhere near a training camp, but he will be on a roster come the start of the season.
Well, I think all of those guys you named are going to be on a roster. I think, they're, like I said, depth at defensive line is always needed. It's just a matter of what the thing you brought out. Do they want to be in camp, or do they want to pick and choose and wait till the last minute and go in and just get picked up at the right place at the right time?
Yeah, I agree. The edge rusher pool is a little bit stronger, I think, than the defensive tackle pool, just because their defensive tackles are hard to find, and most of them have already been eaten up. The only guys that are still out there that are worth anything, Shelby Harris, who had a pretty decent season last year from Seattle. I could see somebody going after him, even though he's 31 years old. 32-year-old Michael Brockers, may have something left in the tank. It just depends on if he wants to keep playing, because he certainly has enough money. And then, of course, the usual suspect, Ndamukong Suh. This guy will be on a roster, but it will not be until after the season starts, because he's already expressed his desire to not be at camp.
Well,
and I don't blame him.
I don't either. At his age, he doesn't need to be. He's shown what he can do, and to bring him in late, it actually helps the team because his legs are fresher.
Yeah, well, and there's no need to try and figure out whether or not he knows what he's doing. He's been in the NFL for 16 years almost. This guy knows what he's got. So does Linval Joseph, another guy that was on Philadelphia last year. Both those guys got brought in mid-season to kind of bolster that run stoppage when they had some injuries there. So I could see both those guys getting signed before it's all said and done. The other position that kind of, we haven't talked about a whole lot yet, but that does have some serious depth is linebackers. Zach Cunningham is still out there. To me, I think he's a guy that can help your defense. Not to mention Deion Jones, Miles Jack, Damian Wilson, Kyle Van Noy, Anthony Barr, Rashawn Evans, Quan Alexander, Jayon Brown, Jared Davis, John Bostic. The list goes on and on. There is plenty of linebackers if you want an older one. That's just a position where there's several of them that are out there that could come in and help you if you have an injury.
Yeah, but again, that's another position that's been devalued, like the running back position. They would rather have depth and young legs. Van Noy, he brings a winning pedigree to the table, but I don't know how much he has left in the tank, really.
He's more of a he's more of a situational kind of player. I don't think he's out there all 4 downs.
Right.
But he's a guy that can come in and still give you a little bit of help. I think.
I mean, if you look
I think
around,
he's 32 years old.
yeah. I mean, but if you look around and you're a team with championship aspirations, and your linebacking crew is kind of young, he'd be a good guy in your group, just to teach him the way to do it and the winning ways that he learned up in Patriot land.
Exactly. So, like I said, lots of linebackers. I like Miles Jack. He's only 27 years old. He had a pretty good year last year for Pittsburgh, in my opinion. Is he the greatest linebacker in the league? No, but he's a guy that can definitely come and add depth at that position, and he's still got some miles left on that car at 27 years old. This is a guy that's been pretty productive in Jacksonville and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I can see that. That wouldn't bother me at all. Go ahead. Anybody else out there?
That's pretty much it for linebackers. The only other ones that I'll talk about is secondary players. There's a couple of dudes that are still available that kind of catch my eye, and probably the biggest one's probably Marcus Peters, the corner out of Baltimore. 30 years old, he's pushing it, but when healthy, this guy can still play. That's the big if, though, is health. He struggled a little bit last year to stay on the field last couple of years in Baltimore. I think that's why they've chosen to move on. Same thing with Byron Jones, another 30-year-old guy in Miami, from Miami, who is available at this point. William Jackson, John Johnson, Bradley Roby, Ronald Darby. All these guys are pushing 30 years old. And, we know when you're a DB at that age, things start to slow down for you considerably. But, Eli Apple's out there. This is a dude who looked pretty good at times for the Bengals on their Super Bowl run. And I could see Eli Apple getting another chance on another team. And him, Marcus Peters, and Byron Jones, those are probably the 3 out of this group that I think will probably have the best shot of getting on a roster.
Yeah. I totally agree with that, Bart. Eli Apple's never been one that floated my boat. I mean, he came in to the Giants with a lot of bluster. He was in a bad time to get to the Giants because they were going through their downward trends. But he was good out in Cincinnati, so I think he'd be definitely worth a look.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's some safeties that are out there, but nobody that really stands out to me. I think there may be a couple of guys on this list that might make a roster, but nobody that I think is going to, come in and start right away or take somebody's position if they get signed. That's kind of what we're looking at. It's not slim pickings just yet, but we're getting pretty close.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about the NFL, the real worthy guys get snatched up early. But
oh yeah,
there are some positions. One thing I want to get to the 10 teams that they say aren't going to make it. But what about these suspensions for the 4 players in the NFL for betting?
Yeah, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when Jameson Williams was suspended from the Detroit Lions, and now there's 4 more guys, including.
Oh wait! Before we go any further, this portion of our show is sponsored by DraftKings.
Yes, it is. Amongst others.
Yeah.
But Isaiah Rodgers is probably the biggest name on this list. And he's suspended indefinitely. And that is brutal for him. The other one that really stands out to me is Nicholas Petit-Frere, who was a big time offensive lineman out of Ohio State. He ended up starting a lot of games last year for the Tennessee Titans. This is a big hit for the Titans. He's suspended for the first 6 games. He was betting in the workplace. Rashad Berry's another guy who plays for the Indianapolis Colts. He's from Ohio State as well. Apparently the Buckeyes like to bet, man. I mean,
all the way back to Art Schlichter.
Yeah, I mean, they like to bet. I think it's all kind of bullshit, to be honest with you. You push this betting, you push this betting, you push this betting. You have it on every commercial. You have it on every sign around the stadium.
On every game.
in every game, and then you're
Announce,
mad when these guys put a bet down. I just think it's ridiculous.
announcers in the middle of the game are telling you now in the third quarter the odds on the Bengals winning because they're behind by 3 points is this, and the odds of the Saints winning is that. I mean, there is a lot of hypocrisy in the fact. And I think this is why, the old time commissioners wanted to keep it out of football. They knew, or you keep the meshing of the gamblers with the sport out of it, because this is the kind of things that start happening. And then you have fans who sit there and go, I don't get it. They're in bed with them.
It's stupid. And, to me, the biggest thing is, you watch a game and at the end, let's say it's a 8-point deficit, 9-point deficit, for example, the one team is just dropping back and the other team goes down and scores at the end. They're like, oh, well, that was kind of a meaningless score. Unless, of course, you had some money on the game, but we don't talk about that. And they make a joke about it. And I'm like, dude, what are we doing here? And so and they're talking about how some of these guys are claiming they didn't know the rules.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. But it seems to me like there's been a lot of new rules placed and at least a lot more emphasis on the rules, meaning they're monitoring this shit a lot closer.
They have to because it is business now.
I understand, but it seems like these punishments don't really fit the crime. I want to know what this guy did, who's now suspended for the entire season. I think that needs the transparency needs to be there for that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because it just seems stupid in a lot of cases. And the other hand, it's like you sit there and you say to the guy, you look at the player and go, why don't you just have your buddy put down a bet? Why are you betting at the facility? All this other stuff. I don't know. It's just nuts. But I mean, to me, when I first thought, I was like, or when we first talked about it, I was like, really? And they didn't expect this to start happening? Please. All right. Yeah. Let's do quickly the 10 teams that this article says has no chance of making the NFL playoffs, starting with number 10, which is the Cleveland Browns.
No chance?
No chance.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. The Cleveland, it all comes down to Deshaun Watson.
But
if Deshaun Watson is better, if the rust has been knocked off, the Cleveland Browns could easily make the playoffs. I like what they've done in this offseason. I like the moves they've made on defense. This is a team, to me, that if they get hot, they can certainly make the playoffs. It comes down to me, Deshaun Watson and their coach. If their coach can figure stuff out, this team can certainly contend for the playoffs. I like the draft pick of DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State, Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is the backup quarterback I like. This is a team that, depending on how much Nick Chubb has left and, Amari Cooper, I like the addition of Elijah Moore. They still have David Njoku at tight end, and their offensive line, if healthy, can still perform. And then, like I said, I really like what they've got on defense. This is a team that I could easily see making the playoffs, so I disagree with that one.
The thing is, though, like that division is going to be survival. It's going to be all about survival, because all three of them, you can make a definite argument that all three of them have a chance of winning that division, with the Bengals and Ravens being the number 1 and 2. And I think Pittsburgh's going to be really good this year too. But they did start out, 3-7 last year, and ended up 7-10. The Browns.
The Browns were 4th in the AFC North last year.
Their record at the end of the season, I believe they had 7 wins.
Yeah, they were 7-10, and they started out 3-7. So the argument can be made that with Deshaun Watson, it was a totally different picture. Number 9, they're saying that we talked about this team at length today, is the Tennessee Titans. Do they get the wide receiver help? What's Derrick Henry's status? Tannehill, can he kind of recover at least a little bit and save Mike Vrabel's job? Number 9, Tennessee. They're in a division with two bad teams in Indy and Texas.
Yeah,
Houston,
once
so.
again, this is a team that if they played in another division, I would probably say no. But given where they are, I'm not as down on them. They had to completely and utterly collapse last year, Joe, in order to miss out on the playoffs. I mean, 7 games in a row they lost. They were 7-3, and they never won a game again. And that's the only reason we didn't see them in the playoffs. I don't see them losing 7 games in a row again. Now, are they going to be the best team in the league? No. Are they going to win 12, 13 games like they did a couple of years ago? I do not see that, but I could easily see them, if Ryan Tannehill is healthy, if they get DeAndre Hopkins, I could see them, winning 9, maybe 10, and sneaking in a wild card. So I'm not putting them on my definitely not list.
And here's another team in the same kind of situation, Tampa Bay. Yeah, Brady's not playing anymore, but they're still in the NFC South, which there's Carolina with a rookie. You got New Orleans. What's going to happen with Dennis? Can Allen kind of figure out how to coach? I don't know. Who else you got down there?
I'm not as down on the Buccaneers as all the idiot reporters are. I get it that everybody hates Baker Mayfield, but he actually looked pretty good in his last stop in Los Angeles. And, he's not in Cleveland anymore. So my biggest thing is he's got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Russell Gage. He's instantly better because those are the best wide receivers he's ever had around him. Right. So I like him. They're moving. The biggest thing to me that scares me a little bit is moving Tristan Wirfs over to the left side. No doubt, Tristan Wirfs is an unbelievable offensive lineman, but it scares me a little bit moving him to the left. Ryan Jensen's going to be back. I just worry about that moving him over to the left. The defense may not be as talented and as deep as they were when they won the Super Bowl, but this is a team that still has the core of their players there. Devin White, Levante David, Shaq Barrett, all there. Jameel Dean, Ryan Neal, Antoine Winfield, Carlton Davis, all there. Vita Vea still in the middle, clogging stuff up. The only thing that kind of worries me a little bit about the defense is, pass rush, Cansey and Tryon Chukwuemeka. I think I just butchered his name, but those guys haven't really shown up fully. So we'll see what happens there. But I also like the draft pick in Raheem Jarrett out of Maryland. It's a dude that could potentially, add some firepower to those wide receiver groups.
Number 7, they got the Bears. They're not saying the Bears are going to be as bad as last year. They say in this article, it says with the young talent that they have, they should be better, but still they'll fall short of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ready to put the Bears in the playoffs yet. However, stranger things have happened. If the Vikings hadn't had a yard sale, I would say definitely not. But they have. They've gotten rid of everybody that I liked on this team pretty much. Adam Thielen gone. Patrick Peterson gone. Dalvin Cook gone. Eric Kendricks gone. A lot of guys that have proved. Zadarius Smith gone. I don't see how the Vikings have got better. And I know they won 13, 14 games last year, but what was it? 9 of them were 1-score games or less. So they could easily, turn around and go the other way. But still, I think the Bears are probably a year away.
Number 6, they got Houston. I agree. I don't think Houston's a playoff team. I think they've added their 2 big franchise cornerstones they have to do. Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud. New coach in that division, though. I think even though it's not the strongest division, I don't see them making any kind of a huge leap. I think they're heading in the right direction, and maybe in 2 years they won't make this list.
No, I love their offseason. I love their draft. I like the coach that they brought in, but they're not ready to compete, for the division or for the playoffs yet. But they could come close.
And then at number 5, they got the Washington Commanders. I feel sorry for Ron Rivera. But this team, I do think, is going to be in rebuild mode. I mean, Brissett is a nice backup if Howell doesn't make it. But the Eagles are the class of that division. I think the Giants, they have the coach they need to get things done. And, of course, the Cowboys are the Cowboys.
Yeah, the Eagles, the Giants, and the Cowboys are all three head and shoulders above the Commanders, in my opinion. And they still haven't solved their quarterback problem. I mean, here it is, 6-7 years later, and we're still talking about who's the quarterback for the Commanders. I mean, I don't understand it. They kind of shied away from moving up and drafting somebody this year. They're touting this kid, Sam Howell, as their starter, who played in one game last year. I just think it's ridiculous. If they were smart, they would start Jacoby Brissett and let Sam Howell learn a little bit more. But that's not how they're presenting it. So I think it could be another long year for Washington.
Number 4, they got the Rams. We discussed the Rams earlier when we were talking about DeAndre Hopkins. So we've gone over that. And as you pointed out at that point, Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford. Is he going to be Matt Stafford of 2, 3, 4 years ago, or is he going to be Matt Stafford last year where he started to show his age and the injuries started popping up on him? So,
yeah, I don't see the Rams. It just looked so bad last year. I have a hard time believing that they're going to be, playoff bound again. But, stranger things have happened. Geno, may have been just a 1-year wonder. We don't know. We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it. He certainly looked good at the beginning of the year last year. He kind of faded a little bit towards the end, but certainly had a good season. But we've talked about it at length, and so is everybody in the freaking world. What are the 49ers going to do? I mean, they've got the best defense in the NFL, but they also have no one that really does it for me at quarterback right now, considering I'm not sure when or if Brock Purdy's going to be ready to go. Trey Lance, they trying to get rid of and no one wants. And then Sam freaking Darnold, who still is getting paid to play football, which God give him credit for that.
Yeah, he must be the nicest guy in the world. Next, they said the Packers, which I agree. I think the Packers are going to have trouble. But then again, that all depends on, as you said, the Vikings are making themselves a mess. And Detroit measuring up for once to everybody's hope and prayers and speculation that they can do it. I mean, they looked good last year. I'd love to do it. We talked at length about how we both respect Jared Goff for just the kind of human being and player he's been for that franchise. You'd like to see him make it, but strange things happen up in Detroit. When they're on their way, they think it looks like they're going to make the move, and all of a sudden something happens and they fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ready to crown the Lions, the division champions yet. And as we just talked about, the Vikings kind of worry me with what they've done this offseason. So, I wouldn't think that the Packers would be a playoff team after, 40 years of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers now turn the page on. I would think it would probably take them at least a couple of years to get back to that point. But, stranger things have happened. But if you had to ask me right now, I would say probably no.
Right. And then the last one, I think we both agree on this, Arizona. It's just, I don't know. Arizona was a team that seemed to be, 2 years ago, they got to a 10-1 start. And then from there, they just sucked. Let's just say it. They've sucked. In every way you can suck, they sucked.
Well, we both have talked about ad nauseum how we were concerned about the drop-off, how they played well for a couple of games and then things would just fall off the table. And then, last year we saw the blow-ups between Murray and the coach, and all this was going on. However, they had just given Murray this huge contract extension. They had just given the general manager a huge contract extension and the coach. So they extended all three of those guys and then got rid of two of them who probably, in my opinion, those two were better than the one they kept. So no clue what they're doing out there. In fact, they have no clue what they're doing out there.
Are you going to see man coverage come back this week?
Not this week, buddy. We are doing a little celebrating the 4th of July coming up this weekend. So we're gonna take another week off here, and then after the holidays, when camp starts back up, we're gonna start breaking down a little preview of college football once we get to that point, but probably another week or two away.
Well, I'm even taking a week off from trivia next week because I figured after the 4th of July being on Tuesday, nobody's going to come up on Wednesday and go down to the dry dock and answer a bunch of my questions. So we'll take a week off from that. And we will be back next Thursday. Everybody, 4th of July, enjoy yourselves. Fireworks, picnics, being with the family. Be safe above all things. Be happy, and let's celebrate this country. Dude, have a great week.
All right, sounds good, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye.